Hello, everyone. Anything to anybody?
Hello. Happy Saturday, everybody. It is May 27th, 2023,
May 27th.
9:36 a.m. Eastern Time. But yeah, all kidding aside, it has been an unbelievable and fantastic week, in my opinion, at least for opportunity in the markets. This whole month has been an excellent month for that, particularly when you factor in earnings and stuff like that, tracking earnings and whatnot, as we do. And so from that perspective, it's been good. When is this ride going to, I don't want to say stop, but maybe slow up or reverse? I don't, and it's hard to say, who knows, but I don't see that anytime soon. I mean, we have big events coming up June 1st, which is, from what I understand, just been pushed to June 5th, by the way. The debt ceiling talks were initially, I guess, deadlined at June 1st. Now they've been pushed to 6/5. Janet Yellen, I guess, needs another 4 days or so as it relates to the debt ceiling. The other thing I'm hearing on the grapevine is, and this was unexpected, I wasn't expecting this as sort of a macro kind of person or observer, is that in this new deal coming up with the debt ceiling, supposedly there's supposed to be an agreement in the 4.5 to $5 trillion range, I guess, to raise the ceiling. And Biden, from what I understand, was asking for 1.5. And it looks like he could potentially get 4.5. So, I mean, wow. Right now, if that happens, and who knows, what point they are in the talks and the negotiations, but let's say they get whatever, 3 trillion, 4 trillion, double what he's asking for. I have to believe that that is going to be extremely bullish for the markets. And to use Dave's phrase, happy days would be here again. Now, he doesn't seem to like that, but I do, because I'm a simpleton. Okay. So, say what you want about these markets. They present opportunity. Volatility, if you're trading, presents opportunity. So that's how I look at it.
Well, Dan, you don't really mean volatility, because volatility means it goes up and goes down.
Yeah, it does. Well, the
volatility doesn't mean it just goes up.
No, it goes up and down, 100%, 100%. Yeah, this is a pinball wizard market.
This week, well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Is what you're describing we're going into Weimar, Germany.
Well,
you're saying happy days are here again. Listen, this is not going to be happy days for the United States.
I understand that.
The market is detached from reality, and I already know what this crash is going to be called. What was it called in 2000, 2001? It's called the dot-com bubble, right? So we know what this one's going to be called. It's going to be called the AI bubble.
I suppose if the big crash does come, you could call it that. I'm not sure there will be a big crash in that manner. I think AI, if you're talking about AI, is going to continue to perpetuate things in ways we can't imagine. However, as we go into the future, it's not going to be good for the average bear. If you're investing and you're trying to profit from that, there's a lot of potential and money to be made. If, on the other hand, you're just, with all due respect, Joe worker living paycheck to paycheck like most Americans, no disrespect, and I have my challenges like the next guy, then it's not going to be so good if you're not learning certain skills and learning how to profit in certain ways, particularly as it relates to hard assets as we go into the future. Hard assets being silver, gold, real estate, by the way, etc. Targeted, that is.
Real estate, yeah. If you bought a commercial building, how you doing now?
So I knew you were going to go there. So that's why I said targeted. If for example, if you're in a quadplex home or duplex home, those are probably going to do fine.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Really?
Yeah,
So if
really.
they raise their taxes
Really.
1,000%, and
Yeah.
you can't pass that cost on to the people because the people can't afford to pay the rent.
So what will happen is, to your point, is AI continues to drop off jobs, the government's going to have to pick up the slack. And I'm not saying this because I agree with it. I don't. But that's what will happen. They're already prepping us for UBI. So they will not let it get to a point, because they know what will happen if it gets to a point. This is my thesis. If they don't provide UBI, which I don't agree with, by the way, but that's where we're headed, then they will have chaos on their hands. So they will provide enough UBI for people to be able to pay the rents. They're going to have to, because if you displace the bulk of your people in the street, you've got an instant revolution. It's that simple.
That's fine, Dan, but what does that mean? If you supply, we've talked about this.
I know what it means.
Several times.
Continues to devalue the currency and lower your purchasing power.
So yeah, okay, so you as a guy, okay, so you're able to charge people a certain amount to live in your quadplex, but you can't pay the electric bill.
Okay, so like I said, people are always, I know you don't agree with this. Your thesis is just friggin' unload everything and live in a cave. That's not my thesis. The other thing is,
what does that even mean?
Okay, exactly what I said. Okay, so people are always going to have a roof over their head. There's no way around it unless they live in a friggin' tent.
That isn't my thesis at all.
Okay, they're always going to have a roof.
What I'm saying is, as long as
certain
people,
hard assets will pay off.
as long as people allow government to do what they're doing right now, we've talked about this. This isn't our grandfather's United States.
I understand that.
This is the Titanic. Hey, I got the honeymoon suite on the Titanic. I'm living large. Blah, 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 blah.
I don't have an answer for that. I don't, other than all you can try to do as an individual. What I would say to people is control what you can control, and you can't worry about things you can't control. Everything you're describing, I don't disagree with. But if you're the average bear, you don't have control over that. You have to continue to better yourself every day, mentally, spiritually, physically, etc., and keep learning and getting better, particularly in the financial realm. Every single day, you have to make strides to learn, people, because the system is built and set up in such a way to, entrap you. It really is, which is to keep you on the hamster wheel. And companies, by and large today, having been a senior manager at a global company, okay, that did $13 billion a year in top line revenue, I can tell you, in general, not all, but most companies suck. The leadership is deficient at best. They have destroyed loyalty the last 30 years. Unions are dead, and it's every man for himself. And I don't like that. I don't agree with it, but that's where we're at. This is what has been built. So now we're going to reap these benefits, if you want to call them benefits.
Yeah,
I don't know what else.
And how are you going to compute? How are you going to compete with a computer, Dan?
I'm not, but I'm going to keep slugging. I'm going to keep pitching, as my father said. Keep pitching, because which means keep learning, keep striving, and that's all you can do, man. That's all you can do. It's either give up, wilt away, and be crushed. Take your pick.
Yeah, it's like the Terminator movie. They didn't give up.
No, they didn't give up. No, they didn't give up. No, humanity is amazing in a lot of ways. Now, Elon Musk is sounding the alarm. I know you don't like him, but I do respect him in certain ways.
Whoa. Now you're putting words in my mouth? I've never said I don't like him.
Well, you've intimated that you're not a fan, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
I've never said that. Never.
Okay. All right. My bad.
The only thing I've said is, if it wasn't for government subsidies, his companies would never have survived. That's the only thing that I've said.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
It has nothing to do with
That's
him.
true. That's true. You've said that. You've been clear on that. That's true. I can tell you that AI is at a point where Hanson Electronics is a great example for you guys that want to do some research. If you want to know where androids are at this point, research Hanson Electronics. You'll be amazed. Now, what they're going to show you is what they've peeled back on the onion at the moment. What am I saying? They're only showing you right now the progress that they want to show you. So I believe AI is even 5 to 10 years ahead of what we even know. What we even
Well,
know.
where do they really show you where the technology really is at? Where do you see it, but you don't realize you're seeing it? You see it in the movies. I know everybody thinks it's fantasy, and some of the stuff is way out there. But look at what Star Trek, how many things actually came to fruition from Star Trek?
100% amigo. So that the thing I would add to that is go back to the 70s. You remember the movie 2001, Space Odyssey with HAL, the computer? So I saw that film 2 or 3 times. I've watched it. And back then, I've always had an interest in, I guess that's why I got into technology eventually, in technology, science fiction, etc. Because I've always thought in a general sense since I was a child that if you could envision something, if you could conceptually think about something in your mind, then eventually you could make it come to fruition or outright reality. And man has proven that time and time again. I mean, take the combustion engine. Somebody had to think about that at one point where it was totally theory and they had no idea how to do it, but they figured it out. Same thing with the airplane. We're there with technology. We are there with AI. I'm citing the movie HAL because 40 years ago when it was made in the 70s, people were probably like, yeah, that's just so far out. That'll never happen. No, they were telling us, to Dave's point, that that was a preview of what is possible within the realm of possibility and what is probably coming. It's just a matter of time. And HAL is here now. HAL is here now. HAL is making more and more decisions on a daily basis. And what Musk and the powers that be are saying right now is, guys, our legislation is woefully behind the pace at which AI is developing. We need to catch up. We need to put some constraints on. AI is the horse that is out of the barn and, the rider's on there and he's being jerked around and he's trying to pull back on the reins. We have to, with laws and regulations and stuff, be able to control this horse because I think we still have a little bit of time to do that, but not much. And if it gets totally out of hand and throws the rider off the horse, if you know what I mean, guys, the metaphor, then it's done. AI will just more than surpass human beings, in my opinion. And it may reach a point, empirically speaking, where it does pure empirical cost-benefit analysis and reaches a point in time without emotion, by the way, and says, look, guys, when I do the benefits versus the costs here of humanity, your costs outweigh your benefits, guys. You're no longer viable. You're no longer needed. Nothing personal. We can self-replicate. We can self-design and build ourselves now without any human intervention. So that's the point of inflection right there. That's Dan's thesis, the ultimate point of inflection. And I don't know if we're there yet, but I think we're getting close if we're not. The millisecond that AI reaches the point that, from a design standpoint, betterment and self-replication standpoint, that is making AI babies, whatever you want to call it, the minute it reaches that inflection point and doesn't need human intervention whatsoever, what does that tell you? That tells me that's the inflection point of we're in the shit hit the fan. Now we're relying on something that you better hope has mercy on us, because we're not going to be able to stop it. We're not going to be able to stop it. I don't think, Dave, you and I will see it in our lifetime. We might, though. We could. I think our kids will see it. And that's what scares me as a father. I mean, that scares the hell out of me.
Well, what are you going to do? What are any of us going to do if birth rates start falling to where we no longer have population? We're not replacing the parents. You don't have to have a major war or famine or disease or the jab to kill off 5 billion people. You can just over 50. The powers that be have proven they're very patient. They're very patient. They've been around thousands of years, and it's for them 100 years is the game plan. 200 years, they already have it mapped out. So if they introduce something into the water, to the air, into whatever that causes people to have less children, in 100 years, you can set the population to whatever you want it to be.
Totally agree. Because the technology's here to do it. 100%.
And they can set up the blue pill, red pill. Hey, those people who take the blue pill can have children. They can create the new society.
You know, how does this all, this diatribe translate to the markets and trading? Well, in a tangential sense, and reeling it back in, it translates to, in my view, opportunities now and in the near and foreseeable future. Particularly this past week, this segues into NVDA. NVDA had earnings announced on Wednesday, I guess after hours, and it popped like I thought it would. As I said last week, I thought that it would pop to its all-time high, which was, I don't know, 330, 340 range. And it more than did that. I think it got up at one point at about 4:05 to 4:10 p.m. Eastern. It was hovering around $305 a share. And within 10 minutes or something like that, it shot up to what, Dave? 397? Yeah, man, if you look at the chart, even the 5-year chart, it is like this. And what's interesting is if you look on Yahoo Financial, just as a rough guide reference, you know what it's saying the resistance is, Dave, currently? You're going to
500. 500.
No, the resistance, it's citing it as 0. That's yesterday.
Well,
No
we saw
resistance. So, you know, because it's blown so far through its original ceiling of 345 or whatever it is, you know, where's the resistance at this point? You know, it's got to level out somewhere or something, right? AMD.
Amazon is the one that's breaking out right now. Amazon could pull an NVIDIA. And even Tesla, if Tesla gets over 207, it's going to 280.
Well, and I'm watching Tesla like a hawk right now, to your point. As
I would be patient right now because Tesla could dump all the way to 140 right now if it goes. But if it gets above 200, really is a psychological line in the sand. But you can see about a month or 2 or 3 months ago, somewhere in there was a blip where Tesla got up to like 207, 208. If it gets above that, there's an inverted head and shoulders that calculates it's gone to like 280.
Well, you absolutely nailed it. And I was going to say Tesla is one to watch this week, gang. Absolutely one to watch this week. Particularly going long, like Dave said. If it gets past that critical level of around 207, in which I'm watching it as well, it could blow the doors off. But there's also a gap, I think you just alluded to, Dave, that it needs
down at 142.
Yeah. So, I mean, it could be a great long in the next week or two, or a fantastic short.
Well, this is something that you're probably not considering, but it's something people have to keep in mind, that these professional traders, they get bonuses, very big bonuses when they perform well. So it's no accident that NVIDIA went to the moon because they just made their year. These guys just made their year in one day. And so they're not going to give that back this month. So what's the day today? Today's May 27th.
Good point.
The end of the month is Wednesday. So there's 2 trading days next week. And those 2 trading days, I don't think you're going to see, unless something drastic comes out, I think you will see either like a sideways or an up, because those people want their bonuses. But June 1st, hey, June 1st, isn't that what Janet Yellen originally said? June 1st through whatever, now they have a new month.
Come June 1st.
So what do we always say about these guys? They love to pump and then they love to dump. Just look at First Solar. They did that twice. Same game plan. So NVIDIA is completely overbought right now. Somebody owns it at 390, Dan. Somebody owns it at 390. If that thing starts falling like a rock, people are going to unload.
Okay. So guys, if you look at NVIDIA, to Dave's point, and I wanted to get into this, see the max. I have it set on the max. Right now, it's way overbought. It's at 94 RSI. If you go to the 5-year, 94, 2-year, 94, 1 year, 90, 6 months, 90, 3 months, 90, 1 month, 90. So this thing's way overbought. And this might be a great opportunity for a short. And what do I have drawn out here? I'll show you.
Well, and if you were going to short it, then you set your stop. So if it goes over 400, you get out of your stop.
Good point.
Something like that. You got to pick a line, because this is the type of thing where there's a saying that everybody knows: markets can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent. And so if this thing goes above 400, there's no overhead resistance. So why can't it go to 1,000?
Well,
it's just
currently,
crazy.
Yeah, no, it could. Currently, the resistance is at around 395, because I guess that's as high as it's gone. So to your point, Dave, if it tests 395 again, hence double or triple top, and it gets past that, then it's going to blow probably another 10, 20, 30 bucks easy. Now, what I wanted to show you here on the 6-month chart, guys, is, and you can see this here, Dave, see the big gap, see the circle I drew, hence the big gap. Now, you're better at this than I am, but in drawing this circle, doesn't this, if NVIDIA eventually have to fill this gap? I mean, if it goes back to trend, look at trend.
Have to?
Well, not necessarily have to, but if it did, if it goes back to trend, it's going to go to 317 roughly, which is trend.
What I've read and I've heard other people reference is approximately 95% plus or minus of gaps get filled.
Okay. So if that's the case, if this thing on the 6-month chart for viewing
But
purposes,
it doesn't say when. Just call up any chart and go back and look, whether it's Tesla or NVIDIA, and go back and look, and you will see that when there's a gap, it may go doop, 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 but then eventually there's a dump, and it just happens to magically go down and fill a gap. The same thing the other way. When there's a large fall as well.
with this big gap, will it fall to just, well, no, to fill this gap, Dave, eventually, whatever the time frame is when it fills this gap, is this correct that it's got to fall to around 317 to ultimately fill this gap, correct? 317.
Well, the way you do it is you look at the day before the gap and you look at the high. So what was the high? What was the high of the day before the day of the gap? Okay. And then look at the next day and look at the low.
So 524, the high was 306.
And then look at the next day and what was the low?
366. Wow.
That's a $60 gap. So that has to go to 306 to fill the gap. So if it goes to 317, there's still a gap. If it goes to 310, there's still a gap. If it goes to 307, there's still a gap.
It really needs to kind of like.
Well, Dan, how many times have you said when you've seen these parabolic races, when you throw a ball up in the air, it comes right down.
Yep. Exactly.
It's unsustainable. Here's the other trick that I use. Here's the other that Texas Bob taught me. If you go up to your indicator, Dan, and you add a 10-day average to your chart, you can take it off later, but just put it on for now. 10 days.
10-day moving.
10 day. Yeah.
Simple.
I use exponential, but either one for this purpose, it doesn't.
All right, exponential. And
then just hover your mouse on the latest day, whatever the last day was. What does it say the last price was?
390.28.
390.28. And what does it say the 10-day average is?
329.44.
The 10-day?
Yeah.
So that basically is a gauge to determine how overbought or or oversold something is. So this thing has run $70 beyond its average. And it's like watching a race. When you see a runner sprint out in front of everybody, how often do they stay in front? Or
Absolutely.
in a bike race?
Because they blow their gas tank. Yeah.
The other thing is, look at the
Yeah.
volume bar at the bottom, Dan.
Yeah, I see it.
One
Right
of those
here.
does not look like the other.
Yeah.
So that means that anybody who wanted to buy that thing is in.
Okay.
And the people who are holding it, because what was the volume that day?
Oh my Lord. 154 million.
Okay, I'm calling up NVIDIA right now to see what their average volume is. I think it's around 40 million, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
The average volume for NVIDIA is 45, 46 million shares. So that was 3 times the volume in one day.
So we have this huge gap. It's going to be filled sooner or later. We don't know exactly when, but it's the ball metaphor straight up in the air. And my point is, gang, on the 6-month chart or the 1-year chart, looking at this, the thing's at 90 right now. It's way overbought. And so this might be a good time, Dave, to set a short, and with a stop of around 400, like you said.
You already gave them what to do, is you watch it. And I would wait until it did a retest of the high, because Monday, because of the way Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday went, or Tuesday, I should say, because Monday's a holiday.
Monday's a holiday.
When Tuesday rolls out,
yeah,
unless something really tragic comes out over the weekend, bank failures or, whatever comes out, the market's going to want to go higher probably.
Float a little bit more. But
because like I said, the end of the month is when things will turn, most likely.
I mean, if it's not in the shortable range now, it will be soon, right? I mean,
Well, not necessarily. Like we talked about, Dan, if we're going into Weimar Republic, this thing could go to $1,000. It doesn't have to look back. If that's what the powers that be are going to do to us, if they're going to set inflation on runaway mode, and that's what they're doing. If they open the spigot for another $5 trillion, who the heck is going to want to own government debt? Because they're basically saying, hey, we're never going to pay this back. You'll get interest on it, but you may never get paid back. And what is the interest? Interest rates are going higher. Have you noticed that?
Totally. So if you take the debt's at 32 trillion at the moment. Where am I going with this? Our total tax receipts, guys, every year are only around 4.5 trillion. All of us that pay taxes, right, comes in at about 4.5 trillion. The interest alone is 1.5 trillion. So
that's going to be the largest line item.
One third of every dollar that comes in, guys, this is how you have to look at it. 1/3 of every dollar that comes in to pay the taxes is going just to service the interest. Now, what's it going to be when it gets to 40 trillion? And let's say 5%. Now you're at 2 trillion to service the interest. And let's say you're bringing in 5 trillion. Well, you've just gone from 33% to 40% just to service the interest. You see how this is growing out of whack? I mean, eventually we're going to kick that can and it ain't going to budge. It's going to be 100 pounds of lead in there. And we're going to kick that can and we're going to break our foot and it ain't going to move. The powers that be, they know this. So they're planning for this appropriately.
Yeah, the other thing on NVIDIA I wanted to just point out, it's approximately 368. I think it got up to 368 in the first 5 minutes, if I remember correctly. So if NVIDIA drops below 368, it means if it went from 300 to 368 in 5 minutes, it means it could fall from 368 to 300 in 5 minutes, or even faster. Because normally things fall faster. I mean, think about it. It takes a lot longer to climb the stairs than falling out a window.
Well, yeah, you don't climb stairs at terminal velocity, but you do fall at terminal velocity, meaning upwards of 130 miles an hour. Right?
That when NVIDIA was bouncing between 260 and 280 and you saw earnings coming, that was really the time to take the shot on a long, because you were in a range and the potential damage was lower. But if you go long now, that 368 I just gave you is a good number. If it goes below 368, I would not be buying it. If it drops below 368, I would wait till it falls all the way back, and then it will probably bounce. When you own a stock and it goes up 25% in an hour, you dump it, you sell it. You sell at least a majority of your shares. You might keep a small percentage to ride the wave, but you have to take profits. I think right now you just have to let NVIDIA tell you which way it's going to go. Same thing with Tesla. A lot of people have made a lot of money on Tesla, and that for a certain percentage of people, they get very loyal to a stock. When I think it's crazy to be loyal to any stock, because if the stock is not performing, I think you have to dump it. Learning to sell is a skill. It really is.
Absolutely. So
these are not your children.
So what I would say in addition to that, amigo, is guys, you make your money ultimately on the buy, right? The right spot, and then ultimately, if you buy properly or sell properly, I guess if you're shorting, if your entry point is optimal, I guess it's never perfect, but let's say optimal, then the sell is simply mechanical at that point, right? You shouldn't have to think too much on the sell. You should be disciplined enough to take profits.
Well, it's almost as simple as this. When you have a chart, the first thing you should do, like Dan has there, you should set up support and resistance lines and trend lines. And then what Dan just said, it tells you where the highs and the lows are.
Yeah.
Not guaranteed, but it tells you what the history of this thing has done. So it doesn't mean it won't move $80 in either direction, but what it does tell you is, where am I most likely going to make a profit if I get in and get out?
Exactly.
And so if Tesla goes to 202, that's not the time to be buying. That's not the time to be buying. You want to wait. See on April, there's a blip higher right there. What is that? 207 something.
Yeah, 207.46.
Tesla ended the day. What is the close? 194?
Yes.
I wouldn't be buying right now.
Really?
Well, I mean, if you're going to try to make a scalp,
190.
go to the second candle after the 207. The second red candle.
Got it. So the high was 198.74.
That's where I think your resistance line is, in my opinion. 198.74. That's going to be the resistance for Tesla. If it can get above that, so I think it might float up to 198. That's why I said, so you've got $4. Yay. That's a lot of risk for $4. That's the line in the sand. So because if it breaks 198.74, it's going to retest the 207 or 20 whatever it is. So what I'm saying is, if you're a gambler like Dan, and you can go in long right now and try to ride it to 207, and you'll know that when it gets up near 198, that's going to be a potential rejection spot. And if it gets rejected at 198, get the heck out of your long, because it's going to drop. It's going to drop. And then, but if it breaks 198, you can stay in, and it will go retest 207. And if it breaks if it gets up into 208, then you should buy along it. That's where the conservative people, and this is what the pros actually recommend, whether it's right or not, is they will actually wait for a confirmation day. So they'll wait for it to break, and then it will usually come back and retest, and then they'll get in when there's a confirmation. That's how they supposedly increase their odds of winning. Is they wait for a retest and then they get in on the it's basically, a give and go. Which you see a lot in charts. You see charts going like this. It will go up, retest, and then off for the races. And the same thing on a short. It will basically go up, it will drop, it will come back up, and then down it goes. And the reason it does that is because it tries to shake out the weak hands. And that's the beauty of these candles. I mean, I have a lot to learn, but there's a lot of psychology in these candles. And that's why these patterns tend to repeat over and over again, because whether it was humans 300 years ago or humans today, we all tend to react the same way every time. The fundamentals on Tesla, well, here's the thing that we didn't talk about is Elon Musk and Tesla, they're very good at keeping interest in Twitter and in the news, because they just made a deal with Ford. Did you see that?
No.
Ford just approached Tesla and said, we want our cars to be able to use your network of charges around the country.
Oh, wow.
That's why Tesla just went up yesterday. Look at the candle from yesterday. So what does that mean? Well, I looked online and I didn't see any specifics on the deal, on the numbers. So I don't know how much Ford is willing to pay. But the bottom line is, let's face it, one of the best assets Tesla has is when you drive around the country or drive around your state, Dan, you notice Tesla stations everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not everywhere, but they're in rest areas, they're at gas stations, they're in hotels. So people, they have electric cars, they can charge them. So if you're Ford or you're NIO or you're any of these car companies, do you want to go around the country and build your own network of gas stations for electric cars?
Mighty expensive. The infrastructure's already in place, so why not leverage a partner, I suppose? Just
you pay them a royalty, pay them a commission. A lot cheaper than building your own network, probably. It's like Charles Schwab. Charles Schwab, they give you a debit card, and you can go to any ATM in the world and use that ATM for free. There's no bank charges. Charles Schwab reimburses you. And why do they do that? Because they don't have their own ATMs and their own banks. And they think it's cheaper just to pay the fees than to go out and pay the cost of putting ATMs in every city in the world. Because that means that's going to be revenue coming into Tesla now, right? That wasn't in their bottom line previously. So it raises the valuation of the company. So you could say, hey, Tesla's going to lose 25% of its business to competition. But if they're now paying you for the network of chargers, that might make up for that loss. I don't know what the numbers are. But obviously it's good news for Tesla. Very good news for Tesla. And it sets a precedent. So Ford just broke that barrier. So maybe GM's coming next, or Honda, or Toyota, or Mercedes-Benz.
That's a very good point.
The other thing that I was reading about is Tesla is having a lot of problems with people cannibalizing their charging stations. So that's a potential issue as well. In the United States, you have to make sure you put these things in a pretty good neighborhood or a secure area. How many times do you see these stories where there's Teslas lined up around the block waiting for chargers? Now you're going to have Fords in there and other cars. So now they're going to have to add that many more stations to make up for the demand. But I guess that's a good problem to have, maybe. Call up the chart for supercomputer.
Who are these guys? Wow.
It's insane. And they got a huge boost from NVIDIA. They're up, I think, $40 or $60 since NVIDIA made their announcement.
So they build high performance server and storage systems, which I used to build, on a modular and open architecture in the US, Europe, and Asia. Oh, wow. Okay. Modular blade servers, workstations, full rack systems, networking devices. So what they do is they build servers, guys, and storage, and then the networking devices to connect everything together on a network, it looks like. Wow. And they've been around since 1990.
Basically the infrastructure of AI, right?
Yeah. I mean, 5G, well, to your point, the company provides its products to enterprise data centers, cloud computing, artificial intelligence, and 5G and edge computing markets.
Well, look at their earnings. You just, well, forget about it. Look at that chart.
Holy macaroni. Wow.
There are a lot of companies.
Woo, 5-year, look at this.
Yeah.
Look at that
what I
candle.
mean. Yep.
Holy macaroni. Look at this,
Yeah.
guys, on the max. Total hockey stick.
Let me
Oh
ask
my
you a
God.
question. In all the charts that we've looked at, how often does that type of hockey stick stay elevated?
Oh my goodness. It has to come down when it's vertical like
No,
that.
on a
It
percentage
has-
basis, how often does that hockey stick stay elevated?
I
0
don't
to
know. It's-
100%. I'll give you the answer. It's 0. It never stays that elevated.
Yeah, I can't.
It just is a question of when.
Yeah.
I looked at options on this. The options are extremely expensive on this.
Look at this gap. Holy good
Right.
God.
And what was the date of the gap? What day? Did it happen to be Wednesday?
Yeah.
What happened on Wednesday?
Well, NVIDIA earnings.
That's my point. So you have this company and other companies that got, what was the price on Wednesday before it went parabolic?
Around 167, 168, something
And
like
what
that.
does it say what was it say closed at after hours?
219.73. So 220. It went from
Do
168.
you still have the 10-day average on this chart?
No, I took it off.
Okay. Well, you
But-
should
but
leave
the-
it on because that's a good gauge with your RSI that tells you whether something is overbought or oversold.
We're on the 6-month chart. Look at the RSI. It's sitting at 95.
But the point is, does it make sense that a company would jump $50 on another company's earnings report? What changed in that company from yesterday? Every week that goes by, we get more information. And the markets are, the first half of the year is when a lot of the money's made. So I think the pros and the banks or whoever is driving this bus has decided to make as much money as they can on the markets first 5 months of the year. They have basically inflated these things up, and now they'll just ride it down. They will ride this thing down. Are you telling me banks don't make money when they ride it down?
Yeah, it's called shorting.
Yep, and they all talk their book. So all these scumbags, they're going to be telling you and me to be buying Tesla right now, to be buying supercomputer, to be buying NVDA. NVDA, Kathy Wood, Tesla's going to 5,000.
And you know what?
That's how they sucker people in because FOMO is real. FOMO is very real if you can't control it. And there have been people this week after the NVIDIA earnings who are piling in saying, I got to get on this train. I got to get on this train. This is when you really have to say, maybe I need to be careful.
Well, so I'm going to get in some of these with short-term calls, and I'm going to scalp them. There is money to be made in them, though. You've got to have some experience and know what you're doing, guys, and you got to be good at scalping. If you're not good at scalping, don't do it. This isn't financial advice, by the way. Don't do it. Dave's right. It's too risky. At this point, especially with RSIs that high, with these things so straight up in the freaking air, it's probably a good time to be thinking about shorting these, right, Dave? At some point. I don't know the exact point, but in general, right? Because when it's sticking straight up in the air, it's got to come down to a point,
Well,
right?
all the focus has been on the technology sector, the NASDAQ, the QQQ. But here's to keep in mind, the IWM has not shown strength, which is the Russell, which is a larger composite of the market. The SPY, which is the S&P, has been range bound. The other thing that I heard is that 60% of companies, 60% of stocks, Dan, are under their 50-day moving average.
Well, it tells you that if 60% of there's a minority of stocks way above that are driving the market, 5 or 10 stocks. And then if the bulk of them are under the 50-day moving average, they tend to be underbought, which means they could float up, right?
Well, can NVDA, or can one stock or two stocks or three stocks carry an entire stock market indefinitely? I don't think so.
Not indefinitely, but if you have market caps like Apple, for example, that's what, 1 or 2 trillion now, it can definitely put a dent in it short term.
Well, we've seen in the last 3 days, NVIDIA did move the markets, but moving it does not mean carrying it.
I think NVIDIA can go higher, much higher. I think it could go 500 easy, but I think it's got to come down a little bit, have a reset, catch its footing, because it's too steep at the moment. It's got to come down a little bit, catch its footing, maybe kind of go over a little bit, do the curly shuffle, left to right, and then start up again. And the RSI is indicating that. Once you get over 70, guys, on the RSI, 70, 75, you need to be ready for an adjustment or 2154. Wow.
Welcome. Ah, hello, madam.
Oh, you bastard. Elysium. Good movie. You nailed it, Dave. You nailed it. This is what's coming, guys, or a close facsimile.
Yeah, that looks like Bakhmut.
This is what's coming.
This was filmed in Mexico City, by the way.
Yes. This is what's coming, or a close facsimile in the future.
Has the power to override
No doubt in
their
my
whole
mind.
system.
Hey, bring down the bone saw!
This ain't gonna kill me. You can save everyone.
We're gonna break into the most heavily guarded place in the universe.
Oh yeah.
Oh, by the way, Elysium, the term is referenced in the Bible.
They will hunt you to the edge of the earth for this.
So, aside from the dramatics here, guys, and the visual effects, what you have to understand is that,
Hold on a second.
we're going to use the Earth's resources up. And as a result, we're going to have to replace the Earth in some way, shape, or form. That's going to be done by an artificially created and generated biosphere.
Well, did you see Elon Musk just this week said that there's plenty of resources for the Earth's population indefinitely, as far as he sees?
Maybe he's right. If the population decreases over time, then yes.
He's saying the population can increase, and there's no concern about resources on Earth.
My counter to that would be, and I'm not saying he's wrong, he's far smarter than I'll ever be. I'm basically a gorilla, but that's fine. What I will say is there's only so much arable land on the planet, number one. Of that arable land, we've replanted it, refertilized it, time and time again, although we do have technology to kind of speed up things, hydroseed, etc. I suppose if you take the oceans into account, which account for 2/3 to 3/4 of the work of the Earth's
Well, you've heard of hydroponics, right?
of the Earth's coverage, we can make use of the oceans, not only, I guess, as a food source, but desalinization, so on and so forth. I suppose that's possible. But it's
What they're proposing in cities like New York City and other cities where these commercial buildings are empty, they're considering turning those into hydroponic farms. No, it's growing plants without soil. So
right,
you're
in
talking
water.
about,
Right, yeah, basically.
they hang them and then basically water and nutrients drip down
Yeah.
onto them.
Yep.
So if you have a 50-story building, very easy to set up a hydroponic center there.
Absolutely.
And that's what they're thinking about. That's what they're proposed on some of these buildings. And it does two things. It uses the space and it feeds people.
Absolutely.
Right in the cities, you have the farms.
100%. And so that's a great point. So in addition to that, and then you cut down on meat, like they want us to cut down on eating meat because of the carbon effects, the utilization of land, so on and so forth. And essentially what you said earlier with Star Trek, Dave, there will come a time, and I don't know how they'll do it, but they will. There will come a time. You guys remember Star Trek, especially the old school one, when the captain with Nimoy and Spock, they were hanging out in the cafeteria. Do you remember some of these scenes? And what would they do? They'd go up to the wall or something and press a couple of buttons, and it would generate the food for them and open a shuttle door, and they'd grab their plate of food, right?
Yeah, they
Right?
just say, hey, give me a cup of coffee.
Yeah, and boom. That's where we're headed.
And you can set the temperature, how much
Oh,
you
yeah,
want it,
that's where we're
whatever.
headed. I don't know how long it's going to take, but they'll get there. The other thing where we're headed to is that they're already working on this, by the way. Star Trek alluded to this as well. You know, the transport systems where they would you transport you, break your, I guess, structure down,
Yeah, you break into molecules.
break you into molecules, and then
That's
put
the
you,
easy part. The hard part is putting it back together.
yeah, and then put you back together. You know, here's point A, and then transport you to point B, and then put you back together exactly.
It's like making a phone call.
Exactly, so that you're not a big hunk of goo on the target side. So they're working on that, guys. They're absolutely working on stuff like that. You know, obviously they're using lower life forms, mice and whatever. But once they perfect that, eventually they'll get to a
Now,
primate.
what do you think 5G and 6G is a result of? Because it's a transfer of energy, of power. That's all it is. And I was working on that stuff. Can you imagine what a company like Siemens Labs or MIT Labs is working on with the budgets they have from governments?
Yeah.
China, about 10 years ago, what they started doing, and I don't think we do this in this country to a great extent. I was in a tier 3 city, which the cities are like Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou. They're tier 1 cities. They're the top cities everybody knows. Then there are tier 2 cities like Hangzhou and some others. And then you get down to tier 3, which this city, Suzhou, they're just now building a subway. They still use bus lines. So now they're on to tier 3 cities. Tier 1, tier 2, they've all been infrastructure developed. Now they're down to tier 3, tier 4 cities. Suzhou, and I forget the term that they used for it, their specific term. But what they do is they set up an industrial development center, this huge complex.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say Dan and I had this idea for, who knows, AI, whatever, or a telephone, or anything technology related. The government will give you space, and the government will pay for everything for you to develop your idea. I'm not sure if they might even pay a stipend to some people. So the government has basically said, we're going to take a certain percentage of our GDP and we're going to fund this type of activity.
Reinvest.
And
Yep.
I'm sure a lot of those businesses fail, or a lot of those ideas fail.
Absolutely.
But that's how Huawei got started. I'd say that the payoff can be quite large.
I think Personally, that's a form of retained earnings, reinvestment. And I think on the part of the Chinese government, not that I'm sticking up for them, I think that's smart. That's called investment.
Well, how do you build your economy over time? So Dan and Dave would have to go to a bank with a business plan and probably get rejected. Or if we were able to get a small business loan, which is very hard to get, but the small business loans, it's a joke. It's probably 15 or 20% now, the rate that you have to pay. So in essence, you're killing the growth. You can't even get off the ground when you're paying 15% interest on the money you borrowed.
No, totally agreed. It's a freaking joke.
So instead, we send trillions of dollars to other countries.
Billions, yeah.
You know, we spend $2. We spend $2 million a cruise missile. We pay Raytheon, General Dynamics, and these other goons trillions of dollars for stuff that isn't going to protect our country. It just makes people a lot of money.
But I don't know these companies. I don't think I'll end up doing anything.
Who cares? Who cares? There's only so many things we can cover. You know, natural gas tried to pop and then it was kicked in the teeth again.
Yeah.
Oil seems to be hovering around $70, but I still contend that a lot of these oil companies, I think they have to go back to pre-invasion levels. And Devon Energy is already back to pre-invasion levels. But it's funny, the company that Warren Buffett bought, Oxy, that's very inflated compared to, if you look at January, February of 2022 versus now, I think it's double what it was just back at the beginning of 2022. Interest rates are going up, the dollar's going up, and the technology sector of the stock market is going up. It's completely convoluted, Dan. It does not make sense. Something's going to break is what I'm saying. Something's going to break. And either we are going to be Weimar Germany, Venezuela, Zimbabwe, or even now it's Argentina, I guess, or we're not.
Well, are we going to become that, or are they going to be able to phase in the reset in such a way in conjunction with CBDCs where that doesn't happen?
Well, what have I always said? What is going to determine? What is it?
But
Okay,
anyway,
so what do you think?
China and Russia.
Right.
Not so bad for a Cro-Magnon head.
Yeah. No, an external force, exactly. You can ignore reality, but you can't ignore the consequences of reality. And the bottom line is, if we're in this bubble, we can create it any way we want, but that bubble is limited.
Debt ceiling has been moved to 6.5, and we're hearing that Biden is asking for 1.5 billion, I guess, in approval. I guess my understanding is to raise it by 1.5, but instead of 1.5 being on the table, 4.5 is on the table. So what does that mean? If that does happen or thereabouts, even if it's 3 or 4 billion, I think the market's off and running again. That's what I think. The bull is
it a sell the news event? Buy the rumor, sell the news.
No, I think it'll spur the bull on even more. NVIDIA could go to 500, 700. Tesla can go back to 300, 400, 500 easy. Don't interest rates aren't they supposed to adversely affect the equity markets as interest rates rise?
Well, it makes sense. I mean, if you're buying back your stock and you're taking on debt, it costs you a hell of a lot more money if you're paying 5% versus 2%.
Yeah. So if interest rates goes up, it's the cost of money goes up, and that affects your cost basis and ultimately things like your EBITDA, right, guys? And your bottom line.
Interest rates of
net income.
Interest rates, and here's the joke. When a company says their revenues are up 15% and inflation is 15%, in essence, their sales are flat.
They're at zero. I mean, do you have to be trained in business to understand that if inflation's at 10% and you got a raise at 3%, that you're still down 7%? I mean, I think if you graduated friggin' elementary school, you should understand that, right? But it's amazing how dumbed down as a whole we've been.
People
in my
don't
family, I have this debate with, they just look at nominal numbers, aggregate numbers. Well, salaries are at this level. Yeah, because purchasing power is in the toilet. You know, the same house that my parents bought in 1977 for 59 G's is now $1 million. Has the value of that house gone up 20-fold in 40 years? Or has the value of the currency gone down 20-fold in 40 years? Hello? So everybody thinks they're a genius. Well, I got $1 million house now. I've lived in it for 42 years. No, your purchasing power has been shot to hell, guys. That's what you don't get. That's why you look at the average family. How many families do you know that they don't exist anymore where just the father works? No, everybody's working now. 40, 50, 60 hours a week just to make ends meet. Not get ahead, not save money, not go on that extra trip, not purchase this vacation home or investment home. No, it's just to make ends meet.
Yeah, and here's the kicker, Dan. So the people who actually are out there taking those type of risks, because they are risks, when you put your money to work, then you're taking a chance. And so if they get punched in the face and they lose money, is that going to spur them to continue to take risks?
Human nature says no. Fortitude says yes. But you're right. Yeah, human nature says no. Back off. If you think about it, you take these big banks, Bank of America, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, who go entire quarters at a time. They don't have one loss in trading. But here's the issue. What have they actually done? And I don't know this answer. Maybe you do, Dave. You probably do. I don't. When they trade and they make these hundreds of millions of dollars per quarter, if not billions, what have they contributed to the economy, technically? Nothing. All it is arbitrage, basically, on the difference of prices of when you bought something and when you sold it. But in terms of GDP, gross domestic product, in terms of an actual service produced or a product provided, they've done nothing. Think about it. They've done nothing except take your money to trade.
They rob Peter to pay Paul.
And then charge you 20% on a credit card API, 5 or 6% on a mortgage, 8% on a car loan, and pay you 0.5% for your savings account.
The guy who wrote Creature from Jekyll Island, G. Edward Griffin,
right?
Okay, he also did the interview back in the 70s or 80s.
Yeah.
He did the one with Yuri Bezmenov. Remember him?
Yep.
He also did the one with the congressman, or not the congressman, the guy who was in the government, who was basically it was about a half an hour interview, and he talked about what the real objective of the people in the government was, and it's not good. And so he's been putting out this information. He just was on an interview with Daniel Camboni, who said, and he basically said, the only way this is going to basically be saved now is if there's a revolution. He's coming out and saying this.
Okay.
So it's like anything. Nobody's going to get off the couch until, and he cited the Revolutionary War, right? 80% of the people sat on the couch doing nothing.
The actual statistic, as I recall, and you can cross-check this, was for the American Revolution, guys, it wasn't even 20%. It was more like 2 or 3% of the population actually did anything. The other 95, 97%. The statistic is like 2 or 3% that made the American Revolution happen, which totally blows my mind. Because you're right, Dave, counterintuitively, I would have guessed, it had to be 10, 20, 30% at least to marshal those types of resources. No, it was like 3%. The 97% were like, no, we're good with England. We're good with King George. We're good with getting punched in the face and whatever. We're good with that. And taking it up.
If it wasn't for George Washington, it probably would have never happened. The American Revolution was getting their butts kicked. I mean,
absolutely.
We didn't have any funds, and it basically, as he said in that interview, when they crossed the Delaware, and the Hessians were the Germans that were mercenaries for England.
Right.
And they basically massacred the Hessians on Christmas night after the Hessians got drunk. And they went over and they went in to camp, and they were bayoneting them because they didn't want to fire a musket and sound the alarm.
Yeah. Guerrilla warfare.
Freedom is a very scary thing. True freedom means personal responsibility. And unfortunately, I would have to say most people don't want that in the world because it's messy and
Scary.
yeah, it means that some people are going to fail. And that means you need good community because a good community helps people. You don't just rely on government. People are involved in their community. I don't think we have that in our country. Sorry.
Not anymore. No. Oh, it's not just people moving to Florida. It's been indicative,
Right.
dude.
Well, I'm just saying, all these people moving. I mean, how are you going to know anybody?
It's been indicative. Yeah. So the point is at an individual and personal
We
level.
rely on Ron DeSantis.
All
That's
right,
our
so
king.
may I have another,
If
please?
it goes to Elysium like
Oh, we're headed in that
levels,
direction.
then government's not going to be there to help you. And it's
Yeah.
going to take groups
Yeah.
of like-minded people who help each other.
Yeah. No, we're headed in that direction. No doubt about it.
Or groups who are coming to take what they want. That's the other side of the coin.
Absolutely. You know, divided you fall, united you stand, if you know what I mean.
As far as these markets are concerned, I think it's a very ominous sign because it's the only thing that the United States has to say that's positive right now. Unless you're a Denver Nugget or LA Laker fan, whoever's in the finals now. I don't even know who.
Yeah.
Yay. We're winners.
Yeah, I don't follow sports, so
Ken Jumbo, he's my guy.
I could care less.
I think we gave some information to watch on some of these stocks anyways. I've always had in my mind, I have had July as really the date that we will really know what's going on. Like July 21st is options expiration for July. I think by July 21st, we will have, of course, this could be wrong. I think we will have a crystal clear vision of what's going on with the markets. And maybe with world events, if you know what I mean. There's a lot of world events going on right now. Besides Russia, Ukraine.
Absolutely.
You know, Germany just announced that they were in a recession yesterday.
I heard that.
What a surprise. I mean, is anybody surprised? I mean, what surprises me is that it didn't happen a year ago. And it probably did happen a year ago. They just took a year to announce it, is what it means.
Oh, probably, yeah. Yeah. Lagging.
So
Lagging indicator.
I think and Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, Target, they're all showing consumer spending like this. And what drives the United States economy, Dan?
70% consumption, baby, on the gross domestic product. Yeah.
Not good. So even though Amazon's screaming higher, Amazon is, I think they can talk about AI, but their AW services are going like this. So if their consumer consumption goes down, I don't think it's good news. Scalping's one thing, but I would be very hesitant. And I just told one of my close relatives who invests in Apple, and we covered this before. I think we already covered this, but I mean, if you're going to stay in these positions, you better hedge them. But maybe not. I could be completely wrong. Like you said, Dan, this time next month, Tesla could be 280. It wouldn't surprise me.
Absolutely. And I'm perfectly hunky-dory with that.
Yeah.
Perfectly hunky-dory.
Dan's okay with Rome burning as long as he gets his 30 pieces of silver, man.
He's such a dick.
I care not what happens to thee. I just care about me.
Like I said earlier, guys, you can only control what you can control. And
I'm just throwing a playful jab. It's
no, I know you are.
Obviously, at this point, if you're on the Titanic, the time for crying is, you can do that later. I mean, right now, you got to get on a lifeboat. That's goal number one. Get on a lifeboat, whatever you determine that to be. But I can tell you the United States has changed just in the last 10 years, 5 years, the United States is a shadow of what it used to be. Do you agree or not? It's a yes or a no.
I don't like going there. I really don't.
The bottom line is it's a yes. And these things pick up speed. So in 5 years, in many ways, our country's not even recognizable from 5, 10 years ago. So the trend, you talk about trends, Dan. You're very good at identifying trends. The trend of the United States is a bad trend right now. And it's going to be very hard to get out of that downward spiral.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't disagree. When you see other countries basically running away from us, that tells you a lot. That tells you a lot. And this is not political, but it's really not political. It's both sides of our aisles need to come together or else, because the barbarians are at the gate, okay? And this administration has exacerbated and accelerated that situation.
You already have your answer, Dan. You said that the clown in chief asked for $1.5 billion, and the Republicans actually say, no, we want $5 billion.
Yeah,
so you already know
it's
that
insane.
they're doubling down because they're trying to grab what they can while they can.
Yeah.
Because they already know the ship is sinking. So grab the dishes, grab the sterling silver.
Yeah, no, I get it. So, again, we were talking about trading and what we can do for ourselves. So I hear you. Yep.
It's all algorithms now. It's not human beings behind a lot of these trades.
No,
and pretty soon it will be probably 95% AI controlled. It'll probably be very difficult to even make a living as a trader, if that's your goal.
Yeah, I mean, well, what are my final words on that note? Wow. Well, we've got the upcoming week coming, Memorial Day holiday. For those that, for all of us, let's try to have a little bit of peace and relaxation this weekend. I guess that's what I would say. Let's enjoy ourselves on hopefully Monday. Those of us that can, with people we want to spend time with and those we care about and love. And unfortunately, I would have, if I had to gander or guess, a fair amount of the U.S. population is working on Monday. Absolutely. And that's how we are now. Everything's about, revenue, 8 days a week, 25 hours a day, got to haul it in. And oh, by the way, pay the worker in Slavelandia as least as possible. Even though he can't pay his bills working 40 friggin' hours a week, and he has to have 2 side hustles, which means code for part-time job because you can't cut it with your regular job. That's all that shit means. That's where we're at. So, but we can't be heavy all the time. Let's have a little bit of fun this weekend. The weather's turning. It's getting nice. Get some vitamin D and give your loved ones a hug. That's my message.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to interject because I can't let that go.
I don't know.
You notice Dan didn't even say what Memorial Day is all about. He said have a hot dog and have fun. See, I choose. That's the problem with our country. Memorial Day represents. No, it's serious. This is why our country's sinking like a rock. Memorial Day. Look up what it means if you don't know. But do you think that the people who actually died for this country would be proud of where the country was today? Do you think they'd be like, wow, I'm sure glad I sacrificed my life for this?
Absolutely, no argument. So, but again, that's a different discussion. I'm trying to end on a positive note. It's a 3-day weekend. Most people work hard day in, day out, week in, week out. They're not crushing it. They're not making a killing. They're living paycheck to paycheck. You know what I mean? I agree with everything you said, man. But I'm trying to, make a little bright light here too. We all work so hard and stuff. So I'm just saying, throw some meat out on the grill on Monday. What he said is right. I don't disagree, but
Monday they're going to be at work, you said.
Throw some throw some ribs on the grill, crack open some cold Bud Lights. I mean, Miller Lite. Forget the Bud Light. Sorry.
Miller Lite, they're the ones who just had that ad where the woman who looked like a man was saying, get rid of the misogyny.
Oh, my bad. You see what I mean? I can't even choose the right beer. How about, what's the Mexican beer? Dos Equis. What's the other one I like? What's the other Mexican beer?
There's tons of them. I mean, the Americanized ones are Corona, Dos Equis.
Oh, Corona, yeah. Grab a cold
Victoria,
Corona, guys,
Modelo,
with a lime in your favorite ribs.
Tecate.
Yeah. So, you know.
But a lot of these beers, you're going to have to, a lot of these beers, they're owned by the same company who owns Bud Light now, InBev.
Have a cold one on me, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, life's short, man. We got to have a little fun. We got to smile once in a while.
Oh, I smile. But
it's good for your hormones. Smile when you can.
Yeah, it's just when we talk about this, it's really truly disgusting.
Well, it's heavy, really, and this is heavy stuff. I get it. And I'm not immune to it. I'm a human being. I get stressed out, man. I get anxious thinking about this stuff, you know, especially when you have kids. God knows what it's going to be like when I'm gonzo and they're taking the reins. Gen Z is up next. They're up next.
I mean, every day is interesting. Hopefully prayer helps people. It helps you keep focused in that there's a lot of scary stuff out there that we should be working to resolve. But the bottom line is focus on today, because today is the only thing that we can have any real control over.
That's the truth. Even Christ himself said that, you know, worry not for tomorrow, because today has its own whatever.
So definitely light up the Bobby. Light up the Bobby.
You have to light up the Bobby. Oh, yeah, absolutely. We're going to be grilling some meat, and I'm going to be drinking some cold beer and probably eating some watermelon, and
sounds like a good day.
I'll jump in the pool at least once, and and on that note, we're good.
Hey, have a good holiday, Dan.
Right, guys, take care.
Thank you very much.
I'll talk to you later.
Peace.
Bye.
Cheers. Hey, everybody, before I go, one of these weekends, we're going to try to go live instead of doing a recording. So if anybody has any thing they'd like to discuss, whether it's tickers, we can look in real time, or thoughts about different industries, sectors. Like Dan said, we can try to make some money here while we can and take advantage of what the markets give us. And Dan makes it look easy. We didn't talk about it, but Dan has been kicking butt. He really, credit is due where it's, you know, it's deserved. He's made really good decisions at the right time. He's had the courage to do the right thing at the right time. And that's half the battle in the markets, is you take what you're given and you trade it. You don't try to force what you think should happen, because then you get your head kicked in. So there's a lot of lessons to learn from that, a lot of lessons. So next Saturday, we're going to try to go live, I think. We're going to go live. So say 9:45 a.m. next Saturday, if anybody wants to come on. I'll put instructions in the video next week on how to come on. I hate saying happy holiday on Memorial Day, but have a good weekend. Peace.